To discuss this more now, we want to bring in Gideon Taylor. He is the chair of operations at the World Jewish Restoration Organization. Gideon, thank you so much for being here. I want to get this straight, though. Poland had no part, bears no responsibility in the systematic extermination of Jews during World War II and the Holocaust. I mean, sounds like what they're saying.
Right. The reality is Poland was a victim country. Poland was attacked. There was terrible, terrible destruction, both of obviously the Jewish population and the non-Jewish population. What we're dealing with and addressing, and what this whole issue is about the property that belonged to Jews and to non-Jews that was taken after the war. Immediately after the war, the property was confiscated by the communist government of Poland, 1947, 1948. So all the property that belonged to Holocaust survivors or to people who perished was taken by the Polish government. Not by the Germans, but by the Polish government. And that's what this issue is about. And the campaign and the effort that's taken place with regard to Poland and other countries in Eastern Europe is for acknowledgement of what happened, for an acknowledgement of what was taken, either for the return of that property or for compensation for that property.
So to get it straight, there's a lot of looted Jewish property all around Europe from World War II, but Poland, according to what you're saying, is a special case because they have a different approach to it?
No, mostly Poland is different because it's so large. It's the place that had the largest Jewish community that was destroyed, and it's also the only country that has not tried to address this issue.
An EU
Mostly
country.
in the EU country. After the fall of communism, all the countries of Eastern Europe faced somewhat similar issues. They all addressed it one way or another with national legislation, some kind of program,
Gideon,
except for Poland.
I want you to take a listen to what Ilan Carr, the U.S. Special Envoy to fighting anti-Semitism, had to say about this topic. He talked to I-24 News' Polina Garayev. Watch.
Poland and Israel are two great allies of the United States and have been great allies of each other. And so I would certainly hope that any tensions between the two countries is resolved expeditiously. Now, with regard to property restitution, it's very important to acknowledge that Poland itself was victimized by the Nazi German occupation of Poland. Just as Poland has every right to have its victimhood acknowledged, I believe that the victims of the Holocaust in Poland have every right to have their victimhood acknowledged. And so if there are Poles, Jewish or non-Jewish, that had their property seized by Nazi Germans, then I think that acknowledging that victimhood is proper.
So in other words, Carr is saying that the victimhood of the Polish people, it doesn't have to come at the expense of the victimhood of the Jews.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Poland suffered terribly. But what we're talking about is an acknowledgement of those Jewish victims and of what happened to them. And for most Polish victims, this issue, it's not even about the money or the cost. It's about a connection. Often the piece of property that they have in Poland is the last tangible connection that they have with a world that was destroyed during the Holocaust. And that's why we've been advocating this issue, why the US government passed legislation, the JUST Act, which was unanimously passed by the United States House and Senate, signed by the President, which would ask for the State Department to issue a report looking at the implementation of international declarations that countries, including Poland, have made. And the Israeli government has also been an important ally and spokesperson, as have others in Europe. This issue is not just a Jewish issue. It's not just an American or an Israeli issue. This is an international issue. And it's both political, it's also historical, and it's about justice, and it's about morality, and it's about fairness. There's a lot of things that come together in this. And that's why we believe it's very important that the effort to address this issue while Holocaust survivors are still alive is completed. So this is not some kind of open sore that's left for Poland. Poland wants to move forward, will move forward as a democratic country. It's an important ally for the United States, an important ally for Israel. It can't move forward without addressing the past.
Does this irrevocably damage the relationship between Israel and Poland?
I don't think it does. I think that Poland understands that this is an issue that's not going away. It will not go away. It's too important. It's too embedded in the history of the Jewish world, of Poland, of Israel, of the United States. It's too important an issue for that. And I hope that, in a post-election situation, in a better atmosphere, calmer heads will prevail, and there'll be a chance to discuss again and to talk with Poland about finding a resolution to this
Really
issue.
briefly, Gideon, in 20 seconds, do you think there's a sense of nationalism, rising nationalism in Poland that comes as a result of the government trying to encourage a new narrative around World War II?
I think it's a concern. It's certainly a concern that there is this new approach, and I think it's important that we continue to ensure that those lessons are learned and that the memory of what happened is preserved.
Definitely. Gideon Taylor, thank you so much for this insight.
Thank you very much.